Hello everyone. It's Tuesday, so it must be LoveCrew Book Club Day. So welcome back to my channel. It's lovely to see you. I haven't posted one of these for a while, but I hope that those of you who have decided to join the LoveCrew Book Club has managed to get yourself a copy of the book by now. Love, What It Is and What It Isn't by Leo Buscaglia, so that maybe we could discuss it. But for today, I'll dive straight into chapter 1. Basically, he starts with love in childhood. Isn't that where everything starts, right? According to Professor Leo Buscaglia, love is a learned phenomena. He reminds us that psychologists, psychiatrists, sociologists, anthropologists, and educators have suggested in countless studies and numerous research papers that love is a learned response, a learned emotion. Also, how we learn to love seems to be directly related to our ability to learn, those in our environment who will teach us, as well as the type, extent, and sophistication of our culture. Professor Buscaglia cites Bali and New York City to illustrate how different everything involving love, sex, marriage, and the family are in those two very different places and cultures. Perhaps you agree with him when he says most of us continue to behave as though love is not learned but lies dormant in each human being and simply awaits some mystical age of awareness to emerge in full bloom. That we seem to refuse to face the obvious fact that most of us spend our lives trying to find love, trying to live in it, and dying without ever truly discovering it. So we all live love in our limited fashion and do not seem to relate the resultant confusion and loneliness to this lack of knowledge about love. He postulates that it appear never obvious to us that if we want to live in love, we must spend at least as much time as a car mechanic or a chef in studying love. Professor Buscaglia reminds us that in discussing love, it would be well to consider the following premises. One cannot give what he does not possess. To give love, you must possess love. To teach love, you must comprehend love. One cannot know what he does not study. To study love, you must live in love. One cannot appreciate what he does not recognize. To recognize love, you must be receptive to love. One cannot have doubt about that which he wishes to trust. To trust love, you must be convinced of love. One cannot admit what he does not yield to. To yield to love, you must be vulnerable to love. And one cannot live what he does not dedicate himself to. To dedicate yourself to love, you must be forever growing in love. He states that as the human child grows, the world which surrounds him, the people interacting in his world, will teach him what love means. He gives the example it is likely that if a wolf, which has been known to serve this purpose for a child, were to fulfill the child's basic needs, he would form an attachment of need to the wolf. But it's not yet love, simply a need attachment. He says it's this first reaction-interaction, one-sided and simple though it may seem, that eventually will lead to the complicated, multifaceted phenomenon, love. He tells us, and I feel we'd all agree, that at this point, the attitude of the person, or the wolf, upon whom the child depends and reacts, plays an important role, because this person, or wolf, also has needs. Professor Buscaglia gives the example of the reinforcement for a mother rising in the night and caring for a child. The feeling of fulfillment in having created life, or the smile of the child, or the warmth of the child against her body may be enough. But nevertheless, she'll need the reinforcement, or she will abandon the child. He states it's been noted that in mothers of autistic, totally non-responsive infants, the mothers tend to pull away, to hold the child less, fondle and caress him less, and generally respond to him less. But for all of us, each family member in his turn will play a role in teaching the child something of love. However, no family member ever sets out deliberately to teach love to a child. Love is an emotion and also a response to an emotion, and therefore an active expression of what is felt. Professor Buscaglia says, love is not learned by osmosis. It is actually acted out and acted upon. Each family member can teach only what he knows of love, which means the child will more and more act out what he's learning. He quotes the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, who said, "Long before birth, even before we are conceived, our parents have decided who we shall be." And of course, aside from the immediate family, there are other influences teaching love. The effect of these influences can be strong, and one of them is the individual's culture. Professor Buscaglia reminds us that no person can be totally free of cultural pressures and influences. To become a socially approved person, one must always give up some of himself. The culture and society has the power, if we choose to be a member of it, to affect our thoughts, limit our choices, mould our behaviour, teach us its definition of adjustment, and show us what it means by love. But he reminds us, our parents will be our foremost teachers. They will have the strongest impact on us and will teach us only the kind of love they've learned, and only to the degree to which they've learned it, because they too have been at the mercy of their teachers and their culture. It is true, of course, that teachers can only teach what they have learned, and the child cannot resist his teachers. He has little or no power to do so. In order to exist at some level of comfort, he must accept what is offered, often without question. Professor Buscaglia tells us that children are even taught what things are significant, what sounds to listen for, what they mean, and what is valueless. So we are taught to be a particular type of human lover. To be loved in return, we need but listen, see, and respond as others do. It is a simple matter, but the cost to our individuality is great. Then he reminds us that language is the main means by which we transfer knowledge, attitudes, prejudices, feelings, and those aspects which make personality and culture unique. Language is taught and learned in and through the family and society. He says, as children, we are unaware that the language we learn will determine who we are in the world, how we will see the world, how we will organize the world, and how we will present our world to others. Professor Buscaglia cites Timothy Leary when he was doing his interesting work in languages and awareness, called Words, the imprint, the freezing of external awareness. Timothy Leary explained that each time a parent or society teaches a child a new symbol, he is given both an intellectual and an emotional content for the symbol. Once frozen, the attitudes and feelings towards the objects or persons to which the words refer become very stable, in many cases irreversible. Through words, then, the child is given not only content, but attitude. His attitudes of love are so formed. From this point, the child is still at the mercy of his teachers. He has been coerced due to lack of experience and through his dependence to trust his teachers and to accept the love world they offer him as reality. Professor Buscaglia next quotes Erich Fromm, who said, "Living is the process of continuous rebirth. The tragedy in the life of most of us is that we die before we are fully born." Professor Buscaglia states that neither the love of self, what educators call self-respect, nor love of others, meaning responsibility and love for his fellow man, can ever be taught in our present educational system. He says that nowhere along the way have we been directly exposed to love as a learned phenomenon. What we learned of love came upon us indirectly, by chance or by trial and error. Professor Buscaglia says our greatest exposure, and often our only teaching, is through the commercial mass media, which has always exploited love for its own ends. I didn't think I would agree with Professor Buscaglia, but I do, that we're given the idea love just happens, and usually at first sight. You don't have to work at love. Love requires no teacher. You just fall into love, if you follow the right rules and play the game correctly. He made me laugh when he said he would not want to form a partnership with an architect who has only a little knowledge of building, or a broker who has a limited knowledge of the stock market. But it's true that we form what we hope to be permanent relationships in love with people who have hardly any knowledge of what love is. They equate love with sex, attraction, need, security, romance, attention, and 1,000 similar things. And yes, love is all of those, and yet no one of those things. Professor Buscaglia states that most of us never learn to love at all. We play at love, imitate lovers, treat love as a game. Then he asks, is it any wonder so many of us are dying of loneliness, feel anxious and unfulfilled, even in seemingly close relationships, and are always looking elsewhere for something more which we feel must certainly be there? Is that all there is? The song asks. There is something else, Professor Buscaglia says. It's simply this: the limitless potential of love within each person, eager to be recognized, waiting to be developed, yearning to grow. I agree with him. It's never too late to learn anything for which you have a potential. If you want to learn to love, then you must start the process of finding out what it is, what qualities make up a loving person, and how are these developed. Each person has the potential for love, but potential is never realized without work. This does not mean pain. Most of us, I'm sure you'll agree, seem to learn our biggest lessons through pain. But Professor Buscaglia states love especially is learned best in wonder, in joy, in peace, in living. And that's what I wish for us all, to learn love's magic in wonder, joy, peace, and living. Thank you for listening and for joining me on this journey about love. If anything has resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with friends you know might enjoy joining us as well. I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments below this video. Until next time.